3 sinister true student encounters, unexplained fears, revealed in cursed campus hauntings. The air in the cramped dorm room felt dense and unwelcoming, like a thick shroud of darkness pressing in from all sides. Jason, Mia, Tyler, and Sarah were huddled over their textbooks, the only light flickering from a weak overhead bulb. The walls seethed with ivy and shadows, each creak of the old building turning their laughter into nervous glances. They had spent countless nights here, but tonight something was different. There was a pulse of terror rattling their nerves. It started with a whisper. Just a faint rustle at first, barely perceptible, but it wormed its way into their minds. "Did you hear that?" Sarah's voice trembled, her eyes darting toward the door as if something lurked just outside. Jason brushed it off with a laugh, but inside he felt his heart racing, a cold sweat forming on his brow. Tyler, usually lost in his tech world, looked up, his face pale. The shadows in the room seemed to twist, elongating to grotesque shapes. As they continued their study session, the lights flickered again. The once warm glow turned stroboscopic, casting their reflections against the walls, distorted and monstrous. Mia's phone buzzed, illuminating her face with an eerie glow. Just then she leaned in, her voice low and urgent. "Guys, I heard about the old professor who disappeared. They say he haunts the campus. He might be here with us." Every word piled more weight on their chests. An old legend woven into their collective psyche, tying dread to the ivy-covered halls. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. And then, like a thunderclap, the power cut out completely. They were swallowed by darkness. Panic ignited in their chests, pounding in rhythm, with the fear creeping up their spines. "Tyler!" Mia called, realizing he hadn't spoken in some time. But the only answer was the beating of their hearts, loud and echoing in the silence. Thoughts raced down a frantic spiral. What if Tyler was already lost to them? Was he trapped in the library, swept away by the same legend? As they exchanged looks laced with dread, they knew they had to go looking for him. The abandoned sanatorium loomed outside like a looming nightmare. Shadows danced at the corners of their sight, whispering grim secrets they couldn't decipher. They grabbed the flashlights with hands trembling. Entering the forsaken building felt like stepping into an abyss. The air was stale, a suffocating blanket that pressed against their chests. Each creak of the worn floorboards sent spikes of terror shooting through them. They ventured deeper, the chill wrapping around them, leaving goosebumps on their skin. Jason felt something brush past him, a cold caress of ignominy. Suddenly, a door slammed shut somewhere off in the distance. "Did that just close?" Sarah breathed out, her voice shaky. Mia clutched her phone like a lifeline, light barely piercing the dark halls stacked with memories of despair. They stumbled upon cluttered rooms strewn with the past, forgotten desks, pictures of the professor whose fate lingered like a thick fog. And they saw it, painted words on cracked walls, churning chaos and the dread of the unknown. The truth must be silenced. Fear gripped them. They were unearthing horrors far worse than imagined. With darkness spiraling closer, they felt something watchful. Whispers entwined around their hearts, shrouding them in a veil of anxiety. The figure lurked beyond their reach, breathing in their fears, and soon it would pounce. Would they uncover what happened to Professor Thompson before they became part of his chilling legend? Time was slipping away, and in that moment they realized terror wasn't just haunting the campus, it lurked inside them too. The flashlight beam quivered in Mia's hand, barely cutting through the oppressive darkness. Every heartbeat echoed her fear, drowning out reason. Sarah glanced over her shoulder, her voice barely a whisper. "What if we shouldn't be here?" "We have to find Tyler," Jason insisted, his voice steadying as a wave of determination crashed through the terror. But deep down, he felt it too, the dread wrapping around him like a living thing, squeezing tighter with each step. They moved forward, anxiety tugging at them as they crossed the threshold of a room marked only by peeling wallpaper and an unidentifiable stench. As they scanned the space, a fading photo caught their attention. A group of students with beaming faces, one of whom looked strikingly like Tyler. "Is that—" Mia gasped, but before they could inspect closer, a loud crash echoed from the adjacent room. Adrenaline spiked. "Tyler!" they shouted in unison, urgency compelling them to bolt toward the noise. As they reached the door, it swung open violently, revealing an empty, dust-laden corridor. A chill coursed through them, settling in their bones. "He's not here!" Sarah hissed, panic rising in her voice. But Jason felt compelled to step inside. "We can't give up. He could be in trouble." Suddenly a distant thud resonated from deeper inside the sanatorium. It thumped like a fading heartbeat, a rhythm that spoke of despair and fear. They exchanged trembling glances before Jason took a step forward, a motion that felt like walking straight into a void. As they advanced, whispers began to float through the air, a cacophony of muted voices layered over one another, almost recognizable but twisted by time. Each syllable felt like a claw scraping against their psyche, urging them to turn back. Panic threatened to swallow them whole, but the bond of friendship urged them to stay together. "Mia, can you record this?" Jason urged, turning to her as they approached a cracked door. The flashlight flickered ominously, its glow a fragile lifeline as she hit record. The door creaked open slowly, revealing an abandoned classroom frozen in time. Desks lay strewn about, and a blackboard was inscribed with frantic chalk marks, the words barely legible. "They're watching. Run!" It read, and a shiver ran down their spines. "Mia, stop recording! We need to leave!" Sarah's voice was rising, panic threading through her tone. But Jason's curiosity piqued. He felt a compulsion to understand, to unravel whatever darkness had overtaken this place. As Mia turned to follow, her flashlight beam caught movement from the corner of the room. There stood a shadow, its form shifting, flickering like a flame in the breeze. It was something more than a trick of light, an entity snarling in silence, a warning wrapped in darkness. "Get out! Now!" It seemed to whisper, a breathless plea mingling with their fears. Despair gripped them tightly as they stepped back, horror straining against their instincts. But instead of retreat, Jason leaned forward. "Tyler!" he called, his voice breaking against the suffocating atmosphere. The shadow flickered again, and with it came an icy gust that swept through the room, snatching the breath from their lungs. Jason stumbled backward, latching onto Mia in a desperate grasp. Suddenly, the lights overhead crackled to life, brilliant white light illuminating the room in stark contrast, revealing the shadow had vanished. But the hallway was not empty. It loomed with ominous whispers, crawling under their skin, each syllable promising that dread was just beginning. "Tyler." Mia's voice cracked, uncertainty spiraling. The oppressive weight of the atmosphere deepened as they headed back, hearts pounding. And then it hit, an earth-shaking realization. What if we brought something back with us? As they made their way toward the exit, a chilling laugh echoed down the hall, freezing them in their tracks. Was it Tyler? Was it something worse? A single thought surged through their minds. What had they truly unleashed on the world outside the walls of that cursed campus? The air thickened, and they began to worry, not just for their missing friend, but for their own sanity. The whispers were louder now, each word resonating with a chilling clarity. They glared into the dark, knowing they were no longer alone. What if the truth was waiting for them just beyond the shadows? Would they dare to confront the darkness surrounding them, or would it consume them whole? The echoes of laughter twisted into screams, a haunting melody that twisted the air around them. Time felt suspended as dread filled every crevice of the dim hallway. Breath quickened, terror painting their visions in shades of red and black. Jason clutched Mia's arm, his grip tight, her skin cold against the warm pulse of adrenaline rushing through him. "What was that?" Sarah whispered, her voice breaking at the edges, panic clinging to every syllable. I don't know," Jason shot back, eyes darting, scanning the thick shadows that loomed just out of sight. The high-pitched laughter rippled through the corridor again, closer this time, making his skin crawl like 1,000 ants marching toward his heart. "What if it's Tyler?" Sarah squinted into the darkness. "What if he's... Her voice faltered, leaving the implication hanging heavily in the air. A sharp thud sounded directly behind them, sending a jolt of terror that rendered them momentarily paralyzed. Mia turned to see a door swinging closed at the end of the hall, as if something had just rushed through it. "We should go back," she urged, her voice trembling, desperation rising above the cacophony of whispers. "No." Jason's voice was firm, yet laced with uncertainty. "If we go back, we'll lose him. Whatever is happening here, it's connected to Tyler." They moved deeper inside, shadows flickering at the edges of the flashlight beam. The whispers intensified, now morphing into a chorus of overlapping cries, a haunting symphony that seemed to pulse with each of their heartbeats. It was as if the walls themselves were alive, edifying their fears, drawing them deeper into the darkness. Mia raised the flashlight, illuminating faded portraits on the wall. Students, smiling brightly from decades ago, their eyes seemed to follow the trio. "They've seen something we haven't," she murmured, the weight of their gazes settling on her. "Let's keep moving," Jason urged, his voice shaky yet resolute. Then, without warning, the beam flickered out. Darkness swallowed them whole instantly, no remnants of light, no source of comfort. Silence rushed in, thick and suffocating. They could hear their breathing now, a quickened rhythm punctuated by crackling dread. "Jason," Sarah whispered into the void, her voice barely above a breath. "What if we can't find the way out?" A faint rustling broke the stillness. "Stay close," he called out, fiddling with the flashlight, anxiety gripping him tighter. The world felt so much bigger, more sinister, without light to guide them. Suddenly a blinding light erupted, radiating from somewhere overhead. Shadows twisted and contorted, morphing into shapes that beckoned. Caught in its glow, a figure emerged, the outline of a boy, staring intently, his face obscured. "Tyler!" Mia shouted, hope bursting forth like a lifeline, but the figure hesitated before dissolving into mist. The laughter crawled back, louder, reverberating walls rattling around them as they recoiled in terror. "Why are you calling for him?" The voice slithered from the shadows, a cruel mockery of innocence. "He belongs to us now." Panic surged through Jason as he stumbled back. "What do you mean? Where is he?" The air shifted cold, swarming with unease. The oppressive weight of their fears materialized into ghostly apparitions, faces twisting in silent screams, eyes wide with despair, mirroring the horror in Jason's heart. "No!" Sarah screamed, terror-fueled resolve snapping through her. "We need to get out, now!" They turned to run, but the hall began to stretch endlessly, an impossible corridor that twisted in on itself. Each step felt heavier, a force pulling them back, binding them to this cursed place. A sinister whisper echoed, "You can never leave." The exit seemed to recede, darkness closing around them as the laughter escalated into a deafening cacophony. Their minds screamed for escape, yet they were trapped in this web of shadows, clutched by the fear that had haunted countless students before them. Was it too late for them? What awaited them beyond? A figure loomed ahead, familiar yet distorted, an echo of their friend, Tyler. "I'm so glad you came," it said, the words dripping with malice, as the shadows beckoned. They needed to break free. But would they? "Run!" Jason shouted, the frantic urgency erupting from within, the only choice left. But as they sprinted forward, a deeper terror gripped their hearts. What if he wasn't the only one they'd have to face? What other horrors lay waiting to be uncovered within the depths of this nightmare? They sprinted through the murky depths of the hallway, each footfall echoing against the walls, like a countdown to doom. Jason led the charge, Mia and Sarah hot on his heels, their breaths rapid and harsh. The laughter morphed into shrieks, a piercing sound that rattled their very bones. It was everywhere now, swirling and spinning around them, a tangible force that threatened to swallow them whole. "Keep going!" Jason shouted, pushing back the creeping doubt that nagged at his mind. The exit had to be close. It was impossible for them to be trapped here, right? The walls felt alive, pulsing as if the darkness wanted to ensnare them. "I can't take this," Sarah gasped, her hands trembling, desperation clawing at her throat. She stumbled, momentarily losing her footing, and in that instant the grip of fear nearly clinched her heart. What if we never find our way out? Mia turned, her eyes wild with panic. "We will! Just stay with me!" Before they could move again, the oppressive silence fell abruptly. The laughter cut off so quickly it felt like a knife slicing through the air. They all froze, exchanging terrified glances. The disturbance had shifted. Something was wrong. The shadows shifted at the corners of their vision, flickers reaching out like long, spindly fingers. A distant echo called out, familiar yet dissonant. "Help me!" It was Tyler's voice, but warped, as though it had traveled through layers of distortion. "Tyler?" Jason yelled, his hope wrestling with raw fear. "Where are you?" "Turn back! Turn back!" came the echo, more urgent, more insistent this time. He felt the pull of it, an unexplainable connection that tugged at his heart. The hall stretched again, warping and twisting, the walls shimmering like a heat haze. "We have to find him," Mia said, resolute. But Jason felt different. What if they found something worse? What if Tyler was already gone? Before he could voice his hesitation, the flashlight flickered back to life. Its beam revealed a scene that sent chills crawling up their spines. The corridor was lined with open doors, each revealing chilling glimpses behind the threshold. Within, shadows writhed like trapped souls. Unrecognizable figures loomed, contorted in anger and despair. "Did you see that?" Sarah trembled. They're alive. Let's go." "No." Jason's voice rose above the gathering crescendo of voices, the haunting calls from the past, merging with their present fear. He tugged at Mia and Sarah, pulling them far away from the doors, but they resisted, drawn to the whispers pouring out. "It's pulling us in," Mia murmured, transfixed by the soft glow of a door that swung slightly ajar, as if inviting her. What if this is where he is? "No!" Jason shouted, feeling the sinking dread coiling tighter around him. "It's a trap!" Yet they were already edging closer, each step against Jason's desperate plea. The coldness radiating from the door sapped their strength, a bitter chill that twisted around their ankles like creeping vines. Suddenly, a shadow erupted, a figure bursting from the doorway. A grotesque face, twisted in agony, lunged toward them. "You shouldn't be here!" it howled. Panic surged through their veins as they threw themselves backward, scrambling away from the horror that threatened to pull them into the engulfing darkness. "Run! Don't look back!" Jason yelled, his pulse pounding in his ears. He grabbed Sarah's arm, yanking her along, dragging Mia behind them as chaos erupted into a rush of pounding hearts and desperate screams. However, the corridor loomed ahead, becoming an endless tunnel that grinned at their fear. The walls began to pulse. It felt alive, feeding off their dread. As they rounded a corner, Jason caught a glimpse of something in the periphery, a chilling silhouette shrouded in shadows. Its eyes glowered, locking onto him with a hunger that transcended physical need. "You can't escape," it warned. Dread settled firmly in his chest. Just when he thought they might break free, a door slammed shut behind them, reverberating through the corridor with a bone-rattling authority. "We're trapped!" Sarah cried, her voice laced with despair. But as Jason turned to shout at her to keep moving, something struck him cold, a sudden realization. What if Tyler is the key? "What do you mean?" Mia asked desperately, scanning the darkness closing in. "There has to be something more to this. He might be fighting to break free." Just then, the sound of a distant bell tolled, resonating like a ghostly summons. It echoed off the walls, mixing with the trapped cries they had just heard. They hesitated, each faced with the choice: dive deeper into the nightmare, or search for a way to bring Tyler back into their world. As the shadows swirled and laughter twisted through the air again, a slow smirk crept across one lurking figure. A whisper slithered into Jason's ear. "Are you willing to sacrifice everything to save a lost soul?" What would they decide in this moment of unimaginable terror? A thick silence enveloped them, almost suffocating. The walls pulsed, their breathing matching the rapid rhythm of Jason's anxious heart. He felt cornered, like prey trapped in a snare, but the weight of Tyler's voice, warped yet tantalizing, hung heavily around him. "What if we do it? What if we go back?" Mia whispered, her voice trembling as she leaned closer to Jason. "If he's in there, I need to help him." "No!" Jason snapped, fear boiling over. The shadows loomed larger, stretching and filling the space with their sinister presence. "You can't! We don't even know what we're dealing with." But Sarah's gaze was drawn to the door that beckoned like a siren. "What if we can reach him? What if—" Before she could finish, a guttural screech erupted from the corridor behind them, echoing off the walls like an anguished wail. It sliced through the tension, sending chills racing down their spines. "Run!" Jason shouted again, the urgency in his voice slicing through the mist of doubt and paralyzing fear. They took off, racing back the way they'd come, hearts pounding, breaths ragged. The laughter swelled, filling their ears with mocking glee, echoing like a twisted melody of despair, urging them to stop. But no, they couldn't stop. Jason turned a corner and suddenly skidded to a halt. Another shadowy figure loomed ahead, a dark silhouette drenched in malevolence. Those smoldering eyes locked onto him once more. "You cannot abandon the one who calls for you," it hissed, each word curling into the air, coated in a chilling promise. "What do you want from us?" Jason yelled, taking a step back, clutching Mia's arm as they prepared to flee again. Fear tightened its grip, a vice closing around him, squeezing out every ounce of rational thought. "Share the darkness," it whispered, voice seeping through the cracks like poison. "Only then will your soul know peace." Jason's memory flashed through his mind. The moments spent with Tyler, their laughter echoing in the halls of their campus home. The closeness turned desperate now, their friendship twisted into a beckoning cry. "We have to save him." With their backs against the wall, they heard the tolling bell again, more insistent this time, vibrating through the ground. It was the pulse of whatever haunted this place, a steady reminder of their ticking clock. "Where do we go?" Mia gasped, panic lacing her voice. "Through!" Jason pointed at the open doorway, its sliver of light, now a beacon amidst the dark. "If he's calling us, we have to go. We can't leave him." They burst through the door, spilling into a darkened room that felt alive, the walls trembling with anticipation. Old photos plastered the walls, faces twisted in terror, and grains of dusty memories slipping through the cracks of time. "Tyler!" Jason shouted into the suffocating darkness, voice echoing back with twisted mirth. The shadows writhed, reaching out like clawed hands, fanning out in pursuit. "Help me!" From somewhere deep within, Tyler's voice pierced through, raw and desperate. The shadows shifted, and beneath the flickering light the distorted faces of the trapped souls became clearer, pleading. "Help us," they whispered in a symphony of torment. Jason's heart raced as he approached the source of the voice. "We're coming!" But as he stepped closer, a lurch of dread surged in his chest. Mia hesitated beside him, eyes darting between the frightened figures and Jason. What if this is a trap? Suddenly, the air thickened and the walls began to close in. Jason froze, a sinking realization pooling in his gut. What if they're all trying to trick us? A twisted figure lunged from the shadows, fingers outstretched, mouth curling into a snarl. You have a choice, help him or be consumed. In that moment the laughter returned, louder, more vicious, drowning out all reason. Jason's head spun. What do we do? Mia cried, panic now bleeding into her voice. As the doors slammed shut behind them, enclosing them in darkness, Jason's breath hitched. I don't know. Their eyes locked in terror, too deep in to turn back now. The malevolence of the place tightened around them like a noose. Before Jason could think, the figure lunged again, and they were forced into the realm of shadows, uncertainty morphing into sheer terror. And within that dread-soaked moment, another bell tolled, signaling the beginning of a nightmare they were utterly unprepared for. "Can you hear it?" Sarah asked, her voice trembling. "What?" Jason scanned the darkened horizon, a growing sense of dread creeping forward. There's something coming. What was behind them in the shadows, and were they already too late to save Tyler? The room felt like it was contracting, closing in on them with dark intentions. The shadows surged, swirling like a tempest. Jason's heart raced. He could hear it pounding in his ears, drowning out reason, drowning out everything but fear. "Jason, we need to move." Mia's eyes were wild, darting toward the edges of the room as if they might spot a chance to escape. But shadows flicked across the walls, taunting with their insatiable hunger. I can't," he stammered, frozen in place, caught in the web of dread that bound him. It clung to him, heavier than the air, thicker than the darkness. "Don't you get it?" Sarah hissed, her voice a frantic whisper. "If we wait too long, it'll take us too." The figure lunged again, a sharpened silhouette darting through the obscurity, arms extending towards them. The mocking laughter reverberated, shrill and manic, a cacophony that ripped through their skin and settled in their bones. "Help us!" A chorus of voices chimed in a haunting melody that made Jason's stomach turn. The faces in the photographs seemed to warp, transforming from mere relics of the past to actual spectres, their eyes wide with terror, mouths twisted in silent screams. Jason took a step back, but the wall pressed against him, an unyielding barrier. "Tyler!" he shouted again, voice cracking, willing his friend to respond. "Come to me!" The whispers slithered, weaving into his thoughts, stirring a longing that scared him more than anything else. With a surge of desperation, he glanced toward the space where Tyler's voice had echoed. "We can't leave him. No, we can't trust them!" Mia's hand clutched at his arm, nails digging in. "They want to keep us here!" But amidst the terror, a flicker of resolve sparked within him. Maybe if we all... "Together!" Sarah jumped in, urgency turning her words into a rallying cry, hope threading through the panic. They stood shoulder to shoulder, drawing strength from each other. Jason could feel the air shift, the dark presence bristling as if agitated by their unity. "On three," Jason said, voice shaking but stronger now. 1, 2, 3. They stepped forward, crossing the threshold into the unknown, hands reaching into the thick blackness, hearts racing as if they were plunging into the abyss. The shadows recoiled, a moment of hesitation, as if taken aback by their determination. The wailing chorus rose again, stronger, more menacing. "Leave us!" a voice thundered, rumbling like distant thunder. "You cannot help the lost." The room trembled, lights flickering like a frail heartbeat. In that maddening swirl of despair, Jason glimpsed the flicker of light ahead, Tyler's soul calling out, anchored in the chaos. With each tentative step, memories began to surface. Moments of laughter, camaraderie, trust. Could they really save him, or were they walking straight into the snare? "Tyler!" he yelled, another push of courage behind the name, as the walls vibrated violently, threatening to tear apart the very fabric of their reality. A blinding burst of light enveloped them, splitting the shadows as the photos burst to life. Faces screamed, the air filled with anguish, despair, time collapsing like a breath held too long. Mia gasped. "What's happening?" Then chilling clarity washed over Jason. "We're just as trapped as they are." With a final surge forward, the light engulfed them, pulsing with an intensity that burned through his eyelids. But just as suddenly as it began, everything went dark once more. Jason's breath caught in his throat. They were back near the door, and shadows began creeping in again, sinister laughter coating the air. "What? What just happened?" Mia stammered, her face pale. I think we made a mistake. We weren't ready," Jason murmured, dread settling deeper. As they turned to flee, heavier footsteps echoed behind them, growing louder. The shadows swelled, filling the space with a scent of decay and madness, pressing against their backs. "Run!" Sarah shouted, but would running truly save them this time? A cold certainty gripped Jason's heart. They had awakened something, whether by choice or by will. They no longer knew. What had they truly set free, and how deep did the darkness run? "Jason, look!" Mia pointed ahead. Something moved in the flickering shadows, something much worse than they had ever seen. And there, among the lunging figures, a familiar face, frozen in eternal fear, just behind the veil of darkness. "Is that Tyler?" Jason's voice cracked with horror. "Run back! We have to find another way!" But the room began to warp once more, and laughter echoed with dreadful clarity. Nothing was what it seemed. Were they already too late? Terror anchored them, hearts racing as they stood at the precipice of nightmare, uncertain of what lay ahead. What other horrors awaited them in this cursed labyrinth? And would they ever find freedom in the end? A thick silence engulfed the room, one so profound it felt like a living entity suffocating them with its weight. Jason's heart hammered in his chest, each beat echoing against the oppressive nothingness that surrounded them. He stole a glance at Mia and Sarah, their faces pale, their eyes wide with terror, reflecting the same fear that coursed through his veins. "Get away!" Mia's voice, a tight whisper, clawed at the air as she pointed toward the darkness. Jason followed her gaze. The familiar face was closer now, its features twisting in an agonizing expression as Tyler's voice echoed in a cacophony of whispers. "Help me." "No!" Jason shouted. "Tyler, stay back!" The commitment behind his voice faltered as Tyler's face morphed, shifting from desperation to something much darker, something incomprehensible. A frigid wind swept through the room, every hair on Jason's body standing at attention. The shadows lunged again, desperate fingers reaching, claws of darkness beckoning them closer. "Run!" Sarah screamed, panic bleeding into her words. Her instinct kicked in, and she whipped around, her feet pounding against the floor, but it felt futile. The more they ran, the more the shadows danced around them, taunting and teasing, creating an illusion that led them in circles. "Why won't this end?" Mia cried out, breathless, glancing over her shoulder as if the darkness might decide to take them at any moment. "Turn left!" Jason shouted suddenly, trying to lead them away from the writhing shadows that grew thicker. "There! The window!" They veered toward the light streaming through the glass, its brightness flickering like a heartbeat. As they rushed, Jason could hear it. A low growl, like a beast awakened from its slumber. The laughter from before morphed into something animalistic, primal. This wasn't just a haunting. It was alive, hungry, and utterly malevolent. "Jason, wait!" Mia cried out, feet skidding to a halt, eyes wide with fear. "What if it's a trap? It's our only chance." He could hardly think. Panic threatened to swallow him whole, but he had to convince them, had to make them see. "What else can we do?" She bit her lip, hesitating. But the shadows clawed at her legs, tugging her backward. We can't let it take us. Just think. Think about Tyler. What about him? Buy time. Weigh the consequences. The thought spiraled, his judgment clouded by the darkness seeping into every corner of his mind. No, we can't leave without him. Then we find him, but we have to be smart. We have to outsmart it, Sarah panted, breath hitching in her throat, fraught with fear. Then we split up, Jason declared, the words tasting bitter on his tongue. Search for a way to help him, then regroup. Are you crazy? Mia yelled, her voice trembling. That's what it wants. It wants us alone. Or it wants us scared, Jason countered, resolve hardening his features. If we don't take action, it will have us for sure. Before Mia could argue further, Jason tore toward the window, adrenaline propelling him forward. The glass shimmered with light, but as he reached for it, the chill in the air intensified. The shadows shrieked in furious discontent, rallying behind him like an angry storm. He was almost there, but just as he reached the window, he felt it, a cold grip wrapping around his ankle like iron chains. The shadows coiling around him, pulling him down, dragging him away from the light, from freedom. No! He screamed, fighting, kicking against the void. In a flash he turned, straining to see Mia and Sarah through the roiling chaos. They raced toward him but seemed to be enveloped by the darkness, their cries blending into the monstrous laughter, drowning beneath a symphony of despair. Help! Mia's voice came faint, mixed with the howling winds of the abyss. Just as they seemed to fade from view, Jason caught one last glimpse of her, eyes wide with horror, lips forming a silent scream. In that moment, Jason understood the terror of the shadows. They aimed to isolate, dismantle, devour. With a surge of strength, he pulled against the grip, a desperate gasp releasing his lungs. Together! Hold on! But would it be enough? From deep within the shadows, a long, low growl formed into a familiar voice. It seeped from every corner, crawl, and crack. Tyler, someone whispered, and Jason's heart dropped as he felt the darkness wrap around him tighter, the anguished pleas growing louder, consuming his resolve. Get back, he shouted into the depths, knowing it wasn't just his friends in danger, but was it too late? The room, no, the entire world, seemed to congeal around him, merging into an inseparable weave of light and dark. What if the only way to save Tyler was to confront whatever lay beyond the threshold of fear itself? Could he truly face the heart of the darkness? As he threw himself against the relentless tide, the shadows pulled tighter, laughter mingling with Tyler's name, echoing louder and more distorted. What truths would be unveiled if they journeyed deeper into that void? Would any of them make it back? Jason fought against the suffocating darkness with everything he had. The shadows constricted around him, a vice tightening with each desperate breath. Heart racing, he focused on Mia and Sarah, the last threads of light tethering him to his friends. He thought of their laughter, now twisted into echoes of dread. "Hold on!" Mia's voice fragmented through the chaos, but even she sounded so far away, as if she were drowning in a storm. Darkness swirled, and Jason was pulled deeper into its abyss. He felt cold tendrils snake up his legs, wrapping around his waist like vines, dragging him down, down, down. He tried to scream, but it felt like the air had been sucked from his lungs. The laughter of the shadows grew deafening, transforming into disjointed whispers, speaking his name, clawing at his sanity. "Jason, help me." The voice echoed with Tyler's mournful tone, and the haunting cries of their lost friend penetrated his mind. A shiver crawled up his spine. Every bit of courage was devoured by the weight of despair. He kicked fiercely, summoning every ounce of strength, his legs flailing. "Get off of me!" The shadows recoiled momentarily, and in that fleeting moment, an idea struck him. What if the darkness was a reflection of their fears? What if he could confront it? Jason steadied his breath, grounding himself in the chaos. He couldn't let it take him. With every inch of resolve, he whispered into the swirling dark, "I'm not afraid of you." The shadows paused, the howling ceasing for just a heartbeat. Mia's frightened voice broke through the storm. "What are you doing? Fight back!" Strength returned to him in waves, each pulse amplifying his determination. Jason shouted Tyler's name into the void. "We will find you. We will save you." The darkness sputtered, wavering as if uncertain. Suddenly, the grip around him loosened. The shadows seemed to recoil at his defiance, shifting like smoke caught in the light. "Together," Mia urged. "We have to unite against it." Jason wrenched himself forward, clawing for freedom, light, anything that could guide him. He heard the whispers falter, then reform, almost hesitating as if waiting for an instruction. Was it truly a trap or an opportunity? "Now!" Sarah shouted, her voice a lifeline. "We'll break through!" She took Jason's hand, pulling him with an unyielding force, and for a brief moment he felt her warmth chase the chill away. Together they fought against the shadow's grasp, their combined voices echoing in the void. "We will not be taken!" With a final surge, light erupted from their united front, a blinding beacon shattering the darkness. A scream, raw and shrill, burst forth from the shadows, reverberating through the room. The shadows writhed, pulsating and contorting, revealing fleeting glimpses of twisted faces trapped within. As they recoiled, Jason caught sight of something. Tyler's outline, hovering in the haze, his face a mask of sorrow and desperation. But just as they were about to reach him, the light flickered, an unseen force slammed against Jason's chest, and he felt the floor drop beneath him as if the ground itself was giving way. Panic surged. "Tyler!" he cried, but the voice came out strangled, swallowed by the dark once more. Mia looked at Jason, fear etched on her face. "What if we're too late?" "No!" His resolve flared again, ignited by her words. He couldn't let it end like this. "We're not leaving him behind." But that's when it hit him. The voices. They were everywhere now, growing louder, drowning out everything else. "Leave him! Join us!" they screamed in unison, a million voices of despair clawing at his mind. Jason's heart raced as he saw Tyler's form engulfed in the shadows, a mixture of pleading and terror. The fight wasn't over, but escaping seemed futile, like grasping at smoke. As the shadows fought to reclaim their dominion, a chilling realization struck him. What if Tyler was not just a victim, but something else, something darker that lurked within? "Tyler!" Jason yelled again, but this time doubt seeped into his voice. What if he was already lost? The room trembled and the shadows surged forward, fangs bared, ready to consume them whole. Would they break through the illusion, or would they too become just another whisper in the dark? The answer was looming, but would they dare to find it? The darkness exploded around Jason, the shadows sinking deeper into rage as they coiled tighter, transforming the room into a cacophony of despair. The whispers clawed at his ears, filling his mind with memories turned nightmares. Each face that flickered in the dark, Tyler, friends he'd lost, even strangers, was a reflection of his tortured thoughts. "Mia!" he gasped, teeth clenched against the disorienting pull. "What do we do?" "Fight!" she shrieked, determination igniting her tone. "Remember what we said. We stick together, we—" A sudden rush of cold swept over them, snuffing out the momentary spark of hope. The floor beneath shifted like quicksand, and Jason stumbled, nearly losing his grip on reality. He was slipping, the darkness beckoning with its twisted allure, a cruel hand drawing him closer to surrender. "Focus!" Sarah shouted above the rising chaos. "Hold on to each other, no matter what." He felt her hand tighten around his as they formed a fragile circle, a fragile defense against the encroaching void. But it wasn't just despair that loomed there. Something worse, something insidious lurked. Jason could feel it like a pulse in the dark, alive, waiting. "Together!" Jason called out again, passion bursting through the terror. "We can do this!" Their voices melded, a chorus of resistance against the grotesque chorus of the shadows. Yet as they united in this small act of defiance, Tyler's figure emerged, its face clear yet distorted, caught between their world and the bleakness surrounding him. "Jason!" he rasped, lungs laboring to form sound. "Help me!" As the ethereal forms of their shadows rose, twisting and spiraling, Jason's heart plunged. The pull of despair was stronger than before, and now it seemed Tyler was caught in a battle of his own. Jason could see pain etched in his friend's features, a struggle for salvation or something much darker. "Don't you dare give up," Mia shouted. "He's still in there. Fight for him." The shadows screeched, their voices rippling with anger, as if they despised the flicker of hope they were trying to create. "Join us!" they hissed, the air filled with a foul chill, making breathing an impossibility. "Embrace the darkness! Surrender!" But Jason fought it. Anger swelled in his chest. He refused to let fear consume him or his friends. "We're not leaving you!" he yelled hopelessly at Tyler, desperation clinging to his voice. "We're coming for you!" Another flash of light erupted before him, illuminating the room for a heartbeat, and in that moment he saw it. The truth. The darkness didn't just want him, it needed them all. It thrived on their fear, their doubts, and Tyler was its bait. "Link up!" Sarah cried, urgency coursing through her words. "Jason, we have to connect! Focus!" Jason took a deep breath, summoning memories of laughter, warmth, the sunlight, the things lost to shadow. The icy grip around his body slackened for a moment, offering a brief glimpse into freedom. He squeezed Sarah's hand and pulled Mia closer. "Feel it! Feel the light!" In unison they chanted Tyler's name, letting it resonate with conviction, eyes locked onto the flicker of his figure. The darkness quaked, lashing out with a vengeance. But then a horrific realization struck Jason. The shadows receded momentarily, exposing a glimpse of something grotesque beyond Tyler. A monstrous darkness with eyes burning like coals. An ancient evil waiting to consume. "Jason! Move!" Mia's voice broke through his horror, shattering the paralysis that nudged in. The shadows thrashed wildly as they pushed against its grip, together as one. "We won't let you take him!" But the darkness roared with its rage, tearing through their voices like wind through brittle leaves. Jason felt a surge of power building, the semblance of a way through the terror. In that moment, Tyler's gaze flickered through fear and resilience. But just as quickly, the shadows clawed him back. The darkness surged forward, teeth like daggers glistening with malice. "Tyler!" But when Jason reached, the space where Tyler had been shrank, obscured once again by the shadows. What if he's gone? He thought, despair creeping back, a sly whisper at the edge of his mind. Then they surged forward, a wall of darkness, blotting out everything, desperation eclipsing hope as the shadows wrapped around them, tightening ever so slowly. As they fought back with renewed strength, Jason felt a sensation wash over him, a cold hand reaching for his very core. What if Tyler truly was lost to them? Would they join him in darkness, or would they become another haunting memory whispered in the night? And right before it all collapsed into oblivion, Jason summoned one last thought. "We're stronger than this." The shadows froze, the night trembling, questioning. Could they push through, or would this be the moment light faded forever into dark? The shadows twisted and contorted, roaring with fury. But Jason's heart surged with an unquenchable fire. The moment hung heavy with dread as he gripped Mia's and Sarah's hands tightly, their fingers woven together in defiance. "Remember who we are," he cried into the impenetrable darkness. "We're friends. We've got each other." The darkness ground against them, inching closer, whispering vile promises that churned in their stomachs. "You cannot stop me," a voice harmonized with the snapping of teeth and the rush of wind. "You're wrong!" Sarah yelled, voice splitting through the gloom. "We are not afraid anymore!" The echoes of their defiance roared back at them, pushing against the walls that confined them. Jason felt the warmth of their unity, creating a light that pierced through the thick shroud of despair. It soothed the clenching in his chest, replacing panic with courage. "Tyler," he bellowed, "we're coming for you. We won't leave you behind." A quake rumbled through the shadows, making them shiver and writhe. Tyler's figure appeared again, faint, flickering. But he was there, caught between worlds, the distress on his face undeniable. "Help me," he gasped, a plea twisted with desperation. "No matter what it takes, we'll save you," Mia shouted, her voice unwavering despite the chaos swirling around them. Together, they stepped further into the maelstrom, the weight of the shadows pushing back. But something shifted within Jason. The shadows were not all powerful. They thrived on fear, and fear was something they had in control now. Stepping off the precipice of hopelessness, Jason called on every happy memory, the late-night laughs, the adventures they shared, the bond that anchored them. "Together," he shouted, "we can harness this strength. We will not be devoured." Lightning crackled through the mire of darkness, revealing the horror around them, a gaunt army of faces twisted in anguish, trapped by their own fears. But together they were stronger. "You don't own us!" Sarah yelled defiantly, and Jason felt power surge through their connected hands like electricity. With a roar of unity, they shouted Tyler's name, devotion igniting a beam of light that pierced the shadows like a spear. The darkness writhed, condensing fiercely before them, battling against the growing brilliance of their hope, determined not to yield. Just when Jason thought they might falter, the walls trembled, and the shadows screamed as if their very essence was unraveling. It was time to confront the darkness head-on. Jason broke the tether and charged forward, refusing to be consumed. "Tyler, grab onto us!" he shouted as the shadows quaked beneath his resolve. "We believe in you!" Mia and Sarah followed closely, their reactions coordinated, a force of nature at their backs. The warmth spread, strength and light spiraling towards Tyler, who was still ensnared in the black abyss. With only one last push, Jason reached for Tyler, feeling the warmth radiate stronger than the darkness itself. "We're here! You're not alone!" In that moment, Tyler's face shifted from despair to determination. The shadows recoiled, as if burned by the sincerity reflected in his own gaze. "I'm here!" he cried through the chaos, a new strength filling his voice. Together, as a single unit, they pulled him forward. The haunting shadows shrieked in rage but began to dissolve. Jason, Mia, Sarah, and now Tyler, they were a glowing light piercing through despair. Then silence, a heavy lull that felt palpable. The dark world fell into stillness, and the oppressive air lifted, like an ache removed from existence. The shattered remnants of the shadows scattered, dimming until only the glow of their bond remained. Breath came easily now, as the warmth cocooned around them. They stood at the threshold of light and dark, where the shadows once ruled. A soft light shone through, brighter than the emergency glow they had expected. Their dorm room came back into focus as they blinked against the new reality, bathed in warm light. Outside, the campus was untouched. The laughter of students merged with the light of the sun. Jason, still clutching onto Mia and Sarah, looked at Tyler, who stood beside them. They were together, no longer adrift in despair, but capable of navigating the bright future ahead. "We made it," Mia whispered, relief washing over her face. Jason smiled, seeing the warmth in his friend's eyes. They had faced down fear, and together had vanquished that darkness. But in that camaraderie, he knew a stronger bond had formed. "Always together," Jason affirmed, squeezing their hands tighter. As they left the haunted halls behind, laughter echoed like sweet music through their hearts, setting the course for all the adventures yet to come. They would always carry the weight of their past, but it no longer governed them. Instead, it was a reminder that together they could conquer all. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that will send shivers down your spine. Smash the like button. Now, to feed the algorithm and show you want more, flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this hair-raising conclusion. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see how these haunting encounters were resolved. Only true fans understand how vital your support is for what's coming next.